So good morning. Today we'll be doing the cell junctions. Now cell junctions were best visualized by the conventional freeze fracture or electron microscopy. Cell junctions are often, as you can see in the slide itself, divided into main following three functional groups. The occluding junctions. These junctions seals the cells together in an epithelium in such a way that even small molecules cannot leak from one side of the cell. Okay, they are selectively permeable. They form a selectively permeability barrier across the epithelial cells. So these are occluding junctions. Anchoring junctions. Coming to the anchoring junctions, they mechanically attach cells to their neighbors or to the extracellular matrix. They connect the cytoskeleton of a cell to the cytoskeleton of its neighbor or to the extra cytoskeleton matrix. And then we have the communicating junctions. As you can get by the name, the communicating junctions play a role in cellular communication. Now, of the variety of junctions, so occluding, the word occluding means removal of any gaps. It's occluded out between two corresponding cell membranes. Now, as you can see, there are three basic categories: occluding junctions, anchoring junctions, and communicating junctions. For your syllabus, even though there are multiple varieties, we will stick to the blue examples only, the tight junctions. So we'll be studying in details the tight junctions. We'll be studying in details the desmosomes or the cell-cell junctions, and we will be studying in details the gap junctions. So for our syllabus, we will be, excuse me, so we'll be doing in details this three category of junctions: the tight junctions, the cell-cell junctions, and the gap junctions. Now, this is a very simplified view. This picture is from Bruce Albers of the variety of junctions we just now studied. So as you can see, this is a tight junction. You can see this is a tight junction. As I said, it seals gap between epithelial cells. Then we have, I said, we'll be studying in details the desmosomes. Okay. So as I said, the desmosomes fall under the category of anchoring junctions, if you remember. So desmosomes fall under the category of anchoring junctions. So as you can see, these are the desmosomes. They connect intermediate filaments in one cell to those of the other cells. So these are the filaments of one cell. These blue color lines are the filaments of the other cell. So desmosomes in a way connects the filaments of the two cells. Then I said that we'll be studying some communicating junctions, and the best example for that are the gap junctions. So you can see these gap junctions actually allow small molecules to pass between the cells. So these three junctions, the gap junctions, the desmosomes, and the tight junctions will be taken in detail. Apart from that, you can see there's another junction mentioned here, the adherens junction. This is very much associated with the cytoskeletal network of the cell. It's very much associated with the cytoskeletal network of the cell. And we'll not be taking this one in details. You'll be studying the cytoskeleton. So that is enough, but there's no point in going into the details of these junctions. And there's another two categories of junctions, as you can see. These are the hemidesmosomes. Hemidesmosomes are very similar to desmosomes in structure, you can see, but they actually attach the cell to the basal lamina. So this is an epithelial cell and this is the basal lamina. Hemidesmosomes actually anchors the cells to the basal lamella or to the extracellular matrix. And then we have another actin-linked cell matrix junctions. This also helps in attaching the cells to the extracellular matrix. So these are the variety of junctions. If we look at the position, usually a cell, the most apical of all the junctions, see, if you think of a cell, this is the apical layer, this is the basal layer. So from the apical layer, if we move downward, the first junction that usually the observed are the tight junctions. Followed by the tight junctions are the adherence junctions. So these are the adherence junctions. And then we have the desmosomes and then the gap junctions. So from top to down, if you look into a cell, this is the serial in which the 4 junctions are seen in a cell or visible in a cell. Now, this is another comparative chart about the function and the target molecules. So, as I said, we discussed that of the tight junctions. I said again and again, the tight junctions seal the cells. And the main molecule involved is the claudin, which is also the adhesive proteins. And the cytoplasmic proteins that are associated with the claudin are the Z01, Z02, cingulin spectrin, and they remain attached to the actin filaments. Then another junctions which we'll be taking up in detail are the gap junctions. The subunits are known as connexin singular, connexin plural. And as you can see, the attachment of the cytoskeletal filament is done by the actin. Then I said we'll be studying the another kind of junctions known as the anchoring junctions. Under the anchoring junctions, we'll be studying the desmosome. And the main target molecules of the desmosome are desmoglein and desmocholine. And the cytoplasmic proteins to which they remain attached mainly are the placoglobin, and the desmoplakin. They remain, and the cytoskeletal filaments to which they remain mainly attached are the actin filaments. So these are the 3 main junctions we'll be taking up. So I'm restricting my talk now to these 3 junctions. So these are the functions initially I had said about the occluding junctions. That is, they seal cells together in epithelium, the anchoring junctions. They mechanically attach their cells to their neighbor or to the extracellular matrix, and the communicating junctions. They mediate the passage of chemical or electrical signals from one interacting cell to its partners. Now, our first junction is the tight junction. Just have a look in the picture. The subunits of the tight junction are the claudin and the occluding molecules or the proteins. And you can see this is cell 1 and this is cell 2. There is a green protein. There are 2 shades of green. One is the darker green and one is the lighter green. It is this portion of the cell has been magnified and shown here. The 2 proteins are sitting adjacent to each other mainly, and they help in maintaining the junctions. If you look into the junctions, there is hardly any space between the 2 protein sets. So there is hardly any space between they almost seal the epithelial membranes of the 2 adjacent cells. They occur in organs such as mammalian small intestine and gut. Tight junctions are also abundant in the ducts and cavities of glands such as liver, pancreas, or the glands that connect with the digestive tract. In fact, they are also found in the urinary bladder. If you look into the structure, they are basically thin bands. You can see the structure. They're basically thin bands that completely encircle a cell. If you look into the tight junctions here, they are as thin bands. And you can see they are encircling a cell. You can see how the junctions are moving through the cell. You can see how their 2 membranes are attached. So they are thin bands that completely encircle a cell. And the tight junctions appear as a network. Look at the picture. So they appear as network of ridges. So it's these areas look like ridges on the cytoplasmic half of the membrane. Now the ridges, these ridges appear to be composed of 2 rows of protein. So these are the 2 rows of protein particles as a zipper. If you remember a chain or a zip, it seems as if they are bound as a zipper belonging to the adjacent cells. The extracellular domain of these proteins, the extracellular domain, so the domain between the cells of these proteins joins directly to one another to occlude or remove any space between them. Now the major, as I was saying initially, the major transmembrane proteins in the tight junctions are the claudins, which are essential for the, so the claudins, if you look into the picture, the dark green one are the claudins, which are the main transmembrane proteins of the tight junctions, and they differ in function from one tight junction to another tight junction. For example, there is a claudin named claudin 16 found in kidney epithelial cells, which is required for the absorption of magnesium from the urine back into the blood. So they have certain definite functions. The functions vary from one epithelial cell to another epithelial cell. So the functions vary. So that is the function of claudins. Now, I give you one specific function of claudin. The second major transmembrane protein, as you can see here, is the light green one, or the occludin. The exact function of occludin, apart from facilitating the zipper, the zipper fashion, is not known. I just gave you an example of the exact function of a claudin, where in case of kidney cells, but the exact definite functions of occludin is still not in detail known. Now, if we come to the function, as you can see by the structural pictures given out here, these pictures are from Bruce Albers, the green ones are from Bruce Albers, this is from Karp. They form almost watertight junctions. As I said, everything is occluded out, there's no gap. And they form the watertight junctions in skin, as well as they help in formation of the blood-brain barrier in brain. I think so, most of you are aware that brain is separated out from the rest of the body by a covering known as the blood-brain barrier. So I'm not getting into the details of blood-brain barrier, we'll be later studying on in the higher classes. Now, in pancreatic acinar tissue, it has been seen that the tight junctions prevent the leakage of pancreatic secretory proteins into the blood. Then in multiple cells, it has been seen that tight junction serves as a regulatory center. Again and again, I've said that tight junctions seal neighboring cells. Then they function as barriers to diffusion of membrane proteins in the apical region. As I showing you, this is important. Tight junctions are found only in the apical region. So if there is diffusion of molecules between the cells, the diffusion is preferred usually in the lower basolateral region. So tight junctions, what they do, they prevent the diffusion of molecules between cells in the apical side, in the apical region of the cell. So that is another important function of tight junctions. They localize the diffusion of the between cells in the basal region of a cell. So that's basically a function, one of the major functions of tight junctions. I would like to show you a picture on that. See, this is the picture. So this is a picture of a intestinal epithelial cell, as you can see. Now, as you can see that the tight junctions are present in the apical region. This is the gut. This is the basal lamina, and this is the, it can be a blood vessel or any fluid tissue, fluid connective tissue. Now, as you can see from the intestinal epithelium, when the glucose is entering the cell, the glucose is not permitted to diffuse out to the neighboring cells in the apical region. The glucose gradually goes down through the cell and is allowed to move out through the basolateral surface. So the active transport of glucose from the gut lumen to the blood is actually done by a sodium driven glucose transporter. That is not shown here. What I wanted to highlight here is that the tight junctions present in the apical region prevent the diffusion of glucose from one cell to another in the apical side, as a result of which glucose is forced to travel down to the base of the cell, and through the basolateral layer only glucose diffuses out. So the tight junctions thus confine the transport proteins to their appropriate membrane domains. So they are confining the transport protein to the basolateral region, here in this case glucose, and prevent the unwarranted diffusion of the proteins in the apical region. Not only that, the presence of the tight junction also block the backflow of the glucose, block the backflow of the glucose from the basal side of the lumen into the gut epithelium. So these tight junctions also efficiently prevent any backflow of glucose from this side of the cell to the gut lumen. So this is basically the tight junctions and the function of the tight junctions. Now coming to the next category of junction, that is the let's move on to the anchoring junctions or the desmosomes. As you can see from the picture, the desmosomes are disc-shaped adhesive junctions approximately 1 micrometer in diameter, having a narrow gap of 30 nanometer in the extracellular region. So these are, you can see the red color. Let's first identify the proteins of the desmosomes. This is the this oxblood color plaque, and then you can see these are the gray color is the two membranes opposed with each other. This is the small extracellular gap, as I was saying, of 30 nanometer, and you can see into this gap from the two adjacent desmosomes some filaments have moved into. So these are known as non-classical adherent proteins. Okay. And these non-classical adherent proteins are of two shades. One is the lighter shade and one is a darker green shade. The lightest shade is known as desmoglein and the darker shade is known as desmocholine. So I'm repeating, there is this disc-shaped structure. From this disc-shaped structure, you can see filaments moving into the extracellular space. And in the extracellular space, you can see there are light and dark green shades. The lighter filaments are known as desmoglein. The darker filaments are desmocholine. And the together are known as non-classical cadherin proteins. Apart from that, there are 2 to 3 other proteins that should be mentioned. As you can see, this red knots, this twisted red knots, this is desmoplakin. And then you can see this violet one picking out from picking out, that is placoglobin. And this another dumbbell shaped structure, that is placophilin. So these are the various proteins involved with the formation of desmosome. As you can see, these intermediate filaments are the filaments present in the cytoplasm. If you remember, when I showed you the basic, very simplified structure of the desmosome, I showed you that these are the cytoplasmic filaments present on one cell, and this is the cytoplasmic filaments present on the other cell. So those blue rod-like structures are nothing but the cytoplasmic filaments. This is of cell 1 and this is of cell 2. Now, as I said, this red oxblood portion is made up of these two category of proteins, the placoglobin and the placophilin. So now if we look into the desmosomes as a whole, so inside the cells, as you can see, desmosomes serve as anchoring sites for rope-like filaments. So these are the rope-like filaments which form a structural framework of the cytoplasm. Now, the particular type of intermediate filaments. So these are the intermediate filaments. So the particular type of intermediate filaments attached to the desmosomes depends on the cell type. For example, there are keratin filaments in most epithelial cells and desmin filaments in heart muscle cells. So the filament nature might vary depending on in which cell the desmosome is present. Again and again I said the desmosome is dense cytoplasmic plaque, the red ox blood color, composed of a complex of intracellular anchor protein, the plakoglobin, and the desmoplakin. So there are two categories of anchor proteins, the plakoglobin and desmoplakin, that are responsible for connecting the cytoskeleton to the transmembrane adhesion protein. So this is the cytoskeletal filaments. Via the desmoplakin, the cytoskeletal filament is attached to the plakoglobin and the plakophilin molecules. They interact through their extracellular domain, as I said. They interact through their extracellular domain to hold the adjacent plasma membranes together, as you can see in the picture. So that is much about desmosome. Now let us talk about the functions. As you can see, desmosomes are small button-like points. It looks like a button-like points of intracellular contact that brings the cells together. Desmosome has been associated with a potentially fatal autoimmune disease called pemphigus vulgaris of human beings. So the importance of desmosome was in fact pointed out when in this autoimmune disorder it was seen that the affected individuals produced autoantibodies for desmogleins. So this is the desmoglein. In this disease, the affected individuals would produce autoantibodies for this protein, the desmoglein. And as a result, they would prevent the binding of the desmosomes of the two adjacent cells, resulting in the loosening of the skin epithelium and severe blistering of the skin. So it was this particular disease actually highlighted the importance of the desmosomes in bringing the cells together. So this is a well-known disorder, and there is a picture of hemidesmosomes I had shown you in the original slides. It's very similar to desmosomes, but instead of helping two adjacent cells to get attached, in case of hemidesmosomes, they are similar, but they attach epithelial cells to the basal lamina. As you can see, they're attaching the epithelial cells to the basal lamina instead of each other. So that is about desmosomes. Now we move on to the next junction, that is the gap junctions. Now this is the drawing of a gap junctions. I would like to show you one more picture. This is how the gap junctions look when they're present side by side in a two membrane. So these are gap junctions. So let me, as you can see, from the name you can visualize, or let me go to the initial simplified picture. These are basically channels formed between two adjacent cells, as you can see. So there is a gap, and from that the name gap junction comes. So there is a gap or a small channel that connects the two adjacent cells, which allow the passage of small water-soluble molecules. If you remember, we have studied cell membrane the other day, the structure, and it is a lipid bilayer. So water-soluble molecules will not move through the lipid bilayer unless it moves through a channel, or it moves through a channel. So gap junctions thus makes channels between two adjacent membranes, in the process facilitating the movement of water-soluble molecules through them. So now let's get into the details of the structure. So these are gap junctions. Now, as you can see from the structure, look at the structure. The gap junction appears as a plaque-like contact in which the plasma membrane of adjacent cells. So this is one plasma membrane, this is the other plasma membrane. Look at this picture. This is the one plasma membrane, this is the other plasma membrane. So the plasma membrane of adjacent cells are in close opposition. They're very close to each other, separated by a space of only 2 to 4 nanometer, and the space difference between the two cells is only 2 to 4 nanometer. As you can see, the gap junction consists of hollow channels. So this is a channel that is open, this is a channel that is closed. So this is the channel. So gap junctions consist of hollow channels around which a series of 6 protein subunits are located. So you can see, so these are 6 protein subunits. Look at the light green color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There is a hollow channel in between. So the proteins can be of 2 categories. It can be of the light green shade or the dark green shade, or a mixture of dark and light green shade. Okay. So the proteins can be of 2 categories. See here. So the proteins can be, see, so there are 6 proteins surrounding a small channel. Each protein is nothing but a polypeptide. As you can see, if this is the plasma membrane, you can see that this is a polypeptide. It spans the membrane and comes out. So it's a membrane spanning polypeptide. The carboxylic side is on the cytoplasmic phase, as well as the amino terminal is also on the cytoplasmic phase. So the gap junction is nothing but a small gap which is surrounded by 6 protein subunits. These subunits are known as connexin, singular. Connexin or the connexin monomer. So this one monomer is the connexin monomer. As I said, they are tetraspanning. They span the membrane 4 times. If you see this loop 1, so you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 span membranes. These membrane proteins. These are 4 span membrane proteins or tetraspanning membrane proteins. Okay. I'm moving to this picture again. So as I was saying, so they form a small hollow channel with a series of 6 protein subunits. The channel has a diameter of about 1.5 to 2 nanometer. It's written as 1.4 nanometer. So the diameter is about 1.5 to 2 nanometer. A single major protein or a macromolecular subunit is called connexin. So that was a misnomer. I earlier said this whole subunit is the connexin, sorry, and the individuals are the connexin. I told it the other way around previously. So this total subunit is the connexin. The single ones is the connexin. So this full one is the connexin. And as you can see, the name here, it is written, these are hydrophilic channels. So look at the structure of a connexin. So this is a connexin. The connexin as appears as an annulus of 6 connexin subunits surrounding the channel. As I said, the permeability of the channel of gap junction is regulated by calcium ions. So this is very vital. If there is an intercellular rise in calcium level, so that might be due to a prior signaling event, because we have seen that we have studied signal transduction, and via an earlier signal transduction event, if there is an intracellular rise in calcium ions, then the permeability is varies. So if the intracellular calcium ion level increases, in most cases the permeability is reduced or abolished. So normally the gap stays, but if there is a sudden spurt in calcium level, the permeability is reduced or abolished. And I had said earlier also that the gap junctions of the adjacent cells line up to provide a continuous channel. The channel, the diameter of the channel being 1.5 to 2 nanometer. In humans, it has been observed that there are 14 distinct connexins. So there are 14 varieties of connexins, each encoded by a separate gene, and each have a distinctive but somewhat overlapping tissue distribution. So we have a variety of 14 types of connexins in humans. Most cell type express more than one type of connexins. So as you can see in this particular cell, we can see the 2 shades of connexin. One is the darker one and one is the lighter green one. So there are two shades of connexins, and the two different connexin protein can assemble into a heteromeric connexin. So let's see. So this is a homotypic or a homomeric connexin where all the subunits are of the similar type. This is a heteromeric connexin where the subunits are of different category. Okay, so it's a homomeric or a homotypic. This is a heterotypic. As you can see in this picture also, homotypic, heterotypic. However, the function of a homotypic connexin usually differs from that of a heterotypic connexin. So most probably the molecules that are transferred to through the homotypic connexin differs quite from that of the heterotypic connexin. And coming to the functions, as I have said, that gap junctions permit molecules such as inorganic ions, sugars, amino acids, nucleotides, and vitamins to pass from one cell to another cell. But they prevent larger molecules because the gap has a fixed diameter length. They prevent larger molecules such as proteins, nucleic acids, and polysaccharides from being transferred. But certain signaling messengers like inositol phosphate 3, IP3, then we have the adenosine monophosphate, adenosine triphosphate, and cyclic adenosine monophosphates. These molecules also can pass through gap junctions. For example, let me give you one example. In heart tissue, gap junctions facilitate the flow of electrical current that causes the heart to beat. So the current flows through from one cell to another cell through the gap junctions. In brain, gap junctions are concentrated in the cerebellum, which is involved in coordinating rapid nuclear activities. So in brain, they help in coordinating rapid nuclear activities. At the time of birth, specifically in babies, at the time of birth approaches, gap junction between the smooth muscles of the uterus enable coordinated powerful contractions. So during pregnancy, we know that contractions occur and the baby is pushed out. So the gap junctions between the smooth muscles of the uterus enable this. At times, the electrical synapses in the brains are allowed to travel through gap junctions. And I talked about the movement of action potential in case of the cardiac muscles. So these are the variety of functions of gap junctions. I'm pausing gap junctions.